Hello, welcome to the 59th edition of Drive-Thru Review. Today I'm going to talk about Elemental Clash as well as Elemental Clash Underworld, which is the first expansion to Elemental Clash. Now this is a living card game. I don't know that it's classified as such, but it's basically like a living card game that you would get from Fantasy Flight or such. And you get all the cards that you need in the box. You don't have to collect them or nothing like that with, with booster packs. So let me just jump into and show you a little bit about how it works. I'm not going to go too in depth because Undead Viking, Lance, he's got a real meticulous and well done video on how all of the different rules work. I'm going to give you a real good feel of it and then come back and tell you what I think about it. So here we go. So what I'm going to be showing you here are the fat packs. And these will contain basically every card that you need to play. Now he's got other little sort of smaller packs that are maybe one of these particular factions and other little packs like that. But you always know exactly what you're getting. There's no randomization or anything like that. But my recommendation, actually, let me just cut right to that, is to get the fat packs. If you were to get into this game, I would just buy both these fat packs. And this will give you more than enough to play for hours and hours and hours. Okay, so what exactly you're going to get in each of these fat packs is shown here. Now, in the initial fat pack, you're going to get 2 play mats, which I'm normally not a big fan of these, but for some reason I like to play with these play mats. I know they're kind of flimsy and everything, but maybe it's something you can play with one time and then get rid of, because the layout of the positions of the cards is not really complex at all. But you get these, and these aren't too bad. Then you get this really well-written rule book. It's this tiny rule book. And then in the first pack, you're going to get basically these cards here. And it has 2 sort of sample starter decks to play with, and so I just kind of have these organized here. So in addition to, 2 starting decks, you've got this huge chunk of cards as well. And then in the Underworld fat pack, you're going to get this other giant stack of cards. And there's not really any starter decks that come with this, so to speak. Or at least there's none outlined in the rules. But once you've played a couple of times, maybe with the suggested starter decks, you're going to want to dive right in and do some deck building. So in this game, you're going to find cards from basically 4 different factions, or in this case, elements. So you've got earth, fire, air, and water. And you're going to build your deck probably at the beginning in one of these colors. And then as you get a little bit more advanced, and especially as you get to some of the cards in the expansion, you're going to start combining elements and making a deck out of multiple elements. So there's a few different types of cards in this game, but basically you've got element stones and then you've got other cards. So your element stones are going to be sort of like your mana, your energy, your resources that you're going to produce on your turn to try to cast your spells and get your creatures into play. So you can see here's a fire element stone, an air elemental stone. You got fire and air. Here's a creature. This is a salamander here, and you see it's got an attack value, a defense value, and some other text effects. And this would be its cost up here. And then you've got some other fire creatures there. Here's an air creature. Let's see, there's a spell there. There's a Storm Blessing spell. And you can actually see this one is a permanent spell. So there's a couple of different spell types. There's sort of your regular spells, your permanent spells, which will stay in play, sort of like an enchantment. And then you've got flash spells, which will sort of be like an instant. You've also got neutral element stones that will produce sort of a neutral energy, not specific to a certain color, but also sometimes have some other effects. And then I just want to show you a couple other creatures. Here's a water creature, another water creature there. There's a little merman and another spell there. So you can see the art is pretty good. Actually, the designer of the game actually also did the art, and it's not bad. And I quite like it. It's got the whole thing has a nice feel to it. The design of the cards and everything. I think it really fits together. Now let's talk a little bit about how you play the game. The object of the game is to, quote-unquote, effectively destroy your opponent's deck. Now each player is going to have to play with a deck of exactly 40 cards. You could choose if you wanted to each play with 50 or 60, but the recommended is 40, and I think that seems to work well. I haven't tried it with any other numbers of cards. But the 40 works well. The games are relatively quick once you learn how to play, and it's really fast and brutal, and good little tactical choices will come up several times in a game. So you'll take your deck, your opponent will take their deck, and then you'll draw 7 cards, and you get a chance to mulligan one time and then draw 7 cards and reshuffle your deck if you choose, and then you basically start playing. So each player is also going to get this mat, and you don't have to use the mat, but it's nice. And you have 3 zones. You've got your element stone zone, your defense zone, and your attack zone. So in here is your element stones are going to go here, and this is your mana, your stones, your energy that you're going to produce. And you'll be able to cast spells and creatures on these stones and then move them on the next turn following the turn that you cast them, either into the defense or the attack zone. So on your turn, you can play 1 stone, and then you can cast as many spells as possible. Now the type of energy that each of these piles that you make, let's say I've got a couple of piles out here, is going to be based on whatever the bottom stone is. So in this case, we would only be able to cast air creatures or air spells on this, and the same with this one. Whereas this one would be able to cast fire. Now you can add any stone you want on top of the bottom one, and it will add 2 of whatever the bottom was. So this will produce 2 air, just as this will produce 2 air. And so any others that I add here will produce fire. So in this case, I'll be producing 3 fire. So let's say I'm a couple turns in, I play this one here, and now I can cast basically up to 3 spells. So this is a real interesting aspect of the game to me, where you're limited to 5 spells that you can cast at any one time on your turn, but you have some decisions to make. Well, do I stack up a bunch of these and I limit myself to 2 spells, but 2 really powerful spells, or maybe I try to spread this stuff out and get a lot of little weenie spells in, you can do like a little deck of little weenie characters. If you're familiar with that term in Magic, it's just a basis small number, small attack value characters, but with a lot of them out there. So I really like how this works. So in this case, let's say I could cast, I'd have this one over here, and I could cast this guy because he costs 3 fire, and that's the cost up there. So on my turn, I would put him there, and then on the next turn only would I be able to move him either to the defense or the attack zone. And then you can attack. When you attack, you can either attack other creatures directly or the opponent directly. And then for each damage that your opponent takes, they're going to have to take and then discard cards. So basically what you're trying to do is you're just trying to deplete their spell deck, and then once they have to draw a card and they can't, then they immediately lose and you win. Now the cool thing about this is it has this ability called Boon. So you can see this creature here has Boon on it. That means if I ever have to discard it from the top of my spell deck, like when I take damage or for some other reason, Boon basically means it can come into play for free. So you can see this creature here is an attack 1 and a defense 1, not a whole lot, but it cannot be blocked. So if I had gotten attacked and then I go to discard this bam comes right out into play, and I can put it wherever I want, like so. So this one, for example, is Boon, and this is deal 3 damage to target creature or player. So he could hit me, and then I go to discard this, and then bam, I'm doing 3 damage right back to him. And there are other cards and sort of deck types that you could do to manipulate your deck so that when you get attacked, you're actually dealing a lot more damage back to them, and kind of set yourself up for some little combos just by this Boon aspect. And this is really kind of innovative as well. So this is another aspect that I like that keeps it, different than from any other just sort of, typical trading card game where you attack. So this kind of sets it apart, I think, as well. So one thing that I saw in some of the early reviews of the basic game was there wasn't a lot of possibilities for combining, different colors into the same deck. It seemed like, at least a lot of the reviews I saw, that single color decks were just automatically winning, and that was probably a little boring for them if that was the case. I don't know if that's the case, because I started off playing with the expansion. And so the expansion comes with a set of these, and this will produce either 1 earth or air, or in this case 1 water or earth, and there's different combinations of these. So if these are on the bottom, you can choose which type it reproduces. And so I've had a lot of fun with these, giving me the added flexibility to having multicolored decks. So in addition to these, you've just got a whole mess of cards. And there's a little bit more complicated effects, and different little combos you can do. I've been playing with a green and a blue deck, and a blue and a purple deck, and just the fire decks are really out of control, and there's just all kinds of little cool spells that you can do. And I can't even start to go over with, because there's so many cards in both sets. But there's a lot of variety here that you can do, and I think these packs cost, I want to say like 30 or 35 bucks, and you get, 200 and some odd cards in each of them. And so there's a lot of opportunity here for deck building at a reasonable cost. You've got everything you need. You've got 3 of every card, and that's the deck, limit for each card. You can have 3 Wall of Bones and 3 of these and 3 of these. You've got 3 of every card. You don't have to go and buy extra packs and everything like that. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that brief overview. I like this game a lot, and it's kind of a wonder to me that something like this hasn't really kind of taken hold. I mean, everything is really, really well done. You get every card you want for 35 bucks. You don't have to go and buy like 3 copies of the starter or whatever, or buy these extra packs or anything. There's no horsing around here. This is a, you get everything that you need in the box kind of thing. And there's opportunity here for initial entry. Let's say 35 bucks, let's call it 30, 35 bucks for the first one, and then the second one. So for around 60 bucks, 70 bucks, you've got a lot of stuff that you can do, you can get out of it. You've got so many different types of decks you could build. I just don't understand why something like this isn't more prevalent. I mean, there's no competitive scene, that's what really drives Magic. There's no, there's no big name behind it, things like that, but to me, this is a good little kind of family type of thing that you could do, or with a group of friends that aren't so into the whole, world of having to collect all this stuff and play competitively and everything like that. Now, the art isn't necessarily as good as like Fantasy Flight cards or Magic cards or whatever, but it's not awful either. It's actually pretty good. So, but I quite enjoy it. So for me, this is great. It's got a lot of different elements to it. The games are real fast and brutal. Because you're going right through the 40 cards, it's over quickly, but there's a lot of opportunity here for deck building and sort of metagaming, like, okay, you've got this burn deck that's going to burn me down, and won't give me any chances to get my creatures out, but there's plenty of cards to counteract that, so I would highly recommend this game to anybody that wants to get a collectible card game, maybe with their kids or whatnot, and not have to go and buy packs and all that stuff. And there's enough in this contained space to, have several different types of decks. So anyway, thanks.